It's the coldest, most remote, and one of the most stunning continents on the face of the Earth. Join us on a journey to Antarctica. We're going with only the second ever Turkish Antarctic expedition. Scientists, explorers, and experts in their field. To get to the White Continent, we'll cross the infamous Drake Passage. We'll witness how the change to our climate is having drastic consequences for the continent.
What's the easy one?
We'll be plumbing the depths of the oceans and the ice for clues about the future of our planet.
305 meters.
And we'll see how humans, thousands of kilometers away, are affecting the wildlife of this fragile but magnificent habitat. And along the way, we'll show you its incredible landscape and bring you the greetings of friendly locals. Welcome to Antarctica. Our route begins in Punta Arenas, Chile's southernmost city. Here we'll board the Antarctic Warrior, a cargo supply ship that most of us will call home for the next 5 weeks. We'll wind our way through the fjords and inlets of Tierra del Fuego before passing Cape Horn and entering the Southern Ocean. After 4 days at sea, we'll reach the South Shetland Islands, where the group will split. 10 brave members of our troop will disembark and spend the next month at a camp on Robert Island. The remaining 15 will stay on board our vessel and travel the length of the Antarctic Peninsula. A month later, the group will reunite and head back to Turkey with their research. Before setting sail from southern Chile, the team has to tie up their loose ends and get the last of their belongings on board. Months of planning by the Turkish Ministry of Science, Industry and Technology and Istanbul Technical University were being realized. 16 tons of equipment is loaded on, and by nightfall, the expedition is ready to go. When we wake, the Antarctic Warrior is already well on its way. We're snaking through the last stretches of the South American continent and sailing into open ocean. That over there is Cape Horn, which means we're leaving these relatively calm waters and entering the Drake Passage. It also means that's the last bit of land we'll see until we reach Antarctica. At this latitude, there's no land to break up the swells or shelter us from the swirling winds. It's a perfect recipe for rough seas and rolling waves. After 4 days at sea, the weather worsens. A southwest wind whips up and batters our vessel. This was the worst we'd encountered. Daybreak brings an icy but calm welcome. "800 kilometers sailed, and we finally made it to Antarctica. It's time for the work to begin.
Well, I'm quite excited to be here after 6 months of preparation with 15 projects. A month-long expedition is ahead of us, and we have to run 15 projects at the same time, as much as, of course, the weather allows.
Robert Island will be home to the 10 members of the camp team, and it's here where we leave them for 3 or 4 weeks. They'll be carrying out a range of scientific studies, but unlike the rest of the group, they'll be living among the local seal population. albeit intense, and braving the extreme Antarctic weather.
Şu anda kamp yerinde çadırı hazırlıyoruz. Çadır hazır. Ancak bugün rüzgar çok fazla. Biraz da hava ısındı. Bundan dolayı çadırın etrafındaki korumalarımız eridi. Onları tekrar düzenliyoruz.
We'll see them again at the end of our trip before our return to South America.
Antarctic Warrior Camp.
For the rest of us, it's now time to make the journey south and inside the Antarctic Circle. Our first stop, Horseshoe Island. And at sunrise, the group is ready to get going. The team has got to drag up hundreds of kilograms of equipment high up on the island's ice shelf. They're trying to find out what the Earth's climate was like thousands of years ago. Locked in the ice are pockets of air, trapped after thousands of years of snowfall, time capsules of forgotten eras, examples of the Earth's atmosphere perfectly preserved. To get to their samples, the team has to set up an ice drill. And working on a steep mountain of ice can be difficult. But after a few hours of back-breaking work, they're ready.
This is depth meter. Okay. You can understand how depth you are going inside. This is a zero button. This is a winch control. This is a drill button.
Aşağı gidiyor. Gönderdin mi sen?
The drill allows them to collect samples of ice from deep inside the glacier. The deeper the ice sample, the older the air pockets they contain. And each pocket of air tells us what the Earth's climate was like when it got trapped.
As you can see, we had a core with ice drill.
By studying the bubbles of air from a range of depths, you can analyze how the world's climate has changed over time.
Gönder.
Yavaş yavaş gönder.
Vay, kar var.
Getting their first sample is a relief for the team. Scientists have been collecting data like this for the last 50 years. Individually, these bubbles give us a snapshot of a past era. But together, they can tell us about the future of our planet's climate. The picture it has drawn is staggering. Temperatures over the last 100 years have risen faster than at any other recorded time. A change that could have drastic consequences for our planet. Ice covers 98% of Antarctica, an area of around 14 million square kilometers. In some places, it's 4 kilometers thick. But here in the Antarctic Peninsula, temperatures have risen by nearly 3 degrees Celsius in the last 60 years. Ice shelves have collapsed, and 87% of the region's glaciers are shrinking.
Şuradan çıkabilsek şöyle bak. Şuradan aradan da çıkılabilir belki ama orası daha zor.
Geologists Attila and Cengiz are hoping to find out how much the glaciers have receded and what effect it has had on the continent. They're headed to the Calumet Peninsula, a strip of land they've pinpointed using satellite imagery. Getting there is difficult. The sea ice is closing in, and the Zodiac has to gently nudge its way through to the landing point. The SEALs couldn't care less about the team's arrival. Finally, on land, it takes almost an hour of scrambling over rocks to reach the bottom of the glacier. It's heavy exercise.
Global warming.
For Attila, it's the rocks at the foot of the glacier that are important for him to understand the rate of warming here. As the glacier recedes, it leaves behind rocks, stones, and dirt that accumulate to form a moraine.
Well, the glacier is retreating, and this moraine was deposited by this glacier when it was here. But now it's a couple tens of meters away. So it means melting of the glacier and warming. This is how it works. And if we know when this moraine was deposited here, we will know how fast the climate is warming, and we can predict for the future climate how fast we will again change in that direction.
To find out how fast the glacier has retreated, he'll need to date the rocks left behind on the moraine. It's a delicate process that begins in a crude way.
Was the easy one. This one. Perfect sample.
Later, they'll use a method called cosmogenic surface dating to find out when they were left behind by the glacier.
Reading 6, 4, 22.
The evidence of Antarctica's glacial retreat is imprinted on its landscape. As the glacier melts, the continent rises up, no longer weighed down by the ice. The stripes on the beach show where the shoreline used to be. Each line of rocks was once the water's edge.
So all these shorelines indicate that, for example, the highest one, once upon time around 9,000 years ago, this 41-meter shoreline was at sea level. And around 5,000 years ago, 20-meter high shoreline was at sea level. So this is a continuous uplift of the continent because of glacial retreat as a result of global warming.
So I was wondering if we can try to go there and...
Gülsen is looking for similar clues about our climate to Cengiz and Attila. Instead of looking on land, though, she'll be searching under the sea. But that comes with a unique set of challenges.
So we will need your help.
Yeah, of course, always.
Thank you.
We'll try to do our best.
Thank you very much.
Gülsen has to lower down a pipe, known as a gravity core, using a winch. It's thrust into the sea floor and then brought back up to the surface, bringing mud, sand, and silt with it.
Well, we are trying to look back in time for global warming because, you know, when the Antarctic ice sheet responds to global warming, the melting brings all the land sediments into the ocean. So we are looking for these evidences.
In time, she'll test her samples for their age and origin. The deeper into the mud she goes, the further back in time she'll be able to see. And analyzing the patterns of her data can tell us about the direction our planet is headed. But even getting the samples is tough.
So it's rather difficult to core here than other places in the other oceans because here we are surrounded by icebergs and the captain needs to secure the ship. Although we found the perfect spot for coring, we are also like in danger of icebergs. But he's gonna do his best to put us on the constant position so we don't lose the good coring site.
The core is lowered down.
305 meters. 305.
But soon enough, the winds and currents have brought in the icebergs, just as she'd feared. With the boat grinding up along the ice, they're at risk of losing the gravity core altogether. They managed to retrieve their equipment, but they've been unlucky. The sediment didn't make it up.
Bad luck. Bad luck.
Demek ki olmadı.
days later, they're trying again. And this time, they have an audience. Huge schools of krill have brought half a dozen hungry humpback whales into the bay. There's a feeding frenzy underway.
They are my charm. I believe we will succeed to penetrate to the sediments today because of them. I believe in whales.
Soon, the team has to turn their attention to the job. With the whales watching by, the core is sent down again. It seems the whales have done the trick. The gravity core is brought back to the boat, and this time they've finally got a sample. It might be small, but it's something.
I was, of course, expecting a longer recovery from the score. You need to go along with what you get. I'm still happy, and we plan to get more cores in the other bay areas, hopefully longer. I mean, I'm happy enough to start my mud dance. Mud dance. Mud dance. I just made it up.
Also on board and in high spirits is Burak, marine biologist, naval engineer, and diver. He's the Mad Hatter of this Turkish tea party. He wants to find out just how much Antarctica's waters have been polluted by humans. But to do that, he's got to get a dry suit on and get in the icy water.
Before I try to get it with, grab sampler, and bottom is rocky, so I cannot collect the sediment between the rocks. This time I will take it quite easily. Hopefully, we will see. At least I will see the bottom, And there are a lot of penguins. They're really funny, guys. There's a seal inside there. Just sleeping there. It's very nice.
While the seals have a siesta, it's time for Burak to dive beneath the waves.
I'm ready to dive. Let's see.
Diving to the sea floor, Burak is looking for polyaromatic hydrocarbons, molecules produced in the burning of fossil fuels, brought here by ocean currents and the wind. They can be found everywhere in the environment, but the easiest way of collecting samples and testing their concentration is by scooping them up in the sand and sediment of the sea floor. And just as he gets his sample, he's approached by a curious visitor. In the 17 and 1800s, fur seals were almost completely wiped out by hunters. Now, their numbers have bounced back into the millions. But the pollution that Burak is finding in the ecosystem could have a direct effect on the seals and other animals that call Antarctica home.
In here, it will accumulate inside the penguins or seals or any other animals, and they will reduce the population. They will stop their reproduction. Their chicks will die because of the pollution, because it will make like cancerogenic effect, mutagenic effects. It will destroy their lives actually, the delicate ecosystem.
Despite the dangers Antarctica's animals face, there is some good news. Humpback whales are enjoying a resurgence. Only 100 years ago, they were hunted almost to extinction. At times during our journey, there are so many, they're impossible to count. And that's true of the penguins, too. one of the expedition's aims is to scout possible locations for the building of a permanent research base sometime in the future.
Seeing all these beautiful creations, I'm having conflicting feelings. On one hand, we should be here to witness, to learn from these incredible environments. But on the other hand, I feel like we're trespassing. We're disturbing the genuine residents of this continent. And yeah, we should be present here, but our presence should be as harmless as possible and as seamless as possible. So in order to do that, we need to use all our knowledge, all our resources, state-of-the-art technology to accomplish this task. We should be aware of Antarctica. We should study it profoundly to understand what we have done, in the rest of the world by seeing on a part that is untouched before us. And maybe we can be inspired to behave in a better way, in a better manner than the rest of the world.
Our journey was almost coming to an end, and with the Antarctic Warrior having to go its own way, we were crossing onto another boat, the research vessel Betanzos, for the final stretch. On board, we found the camp team we'd left behind on Robert Island 3 weeks before. For most of that time, they'd been camping in small one-man tents. There was little shelter from the harsh Antarctic weather. They were clearly glad to be back on the boat. But almost as soon as we're on our new boat, it's action stations once again. On board the Betanzos are 2 helicopters at our disposal, and with the good weather, the team is keen to put them to use. Joining us is renowned Antarctic explorer Alejo Contreras, also known as Alpha Charlie. He'll be helping us scout another location to do the ice coring.
Perfecto, sí. Quédate ahí, porque tú eres mi referencia ahora. Ningún problema, me ayuda.
First, we check the area for suitable sites. And identifying one, Alejo is dropped off, with the loose snow billowing around us. A short while later, he's back on board. From this vantage point, Alejo can see just how much new snow has fallen in the last few weeks. And that's not good news for the ice corers.
We just land there. We got like deep snow until here, but powder snow, loose snow. And this could be very bad for the helicopter pilot because he can, in one moment, he cannot see. He needed to look the sky to get up. Also, this was not the ideal spot just because the snow condition, too much loose powder snow. Too much loose powder snow.
What is
With the conditions too dangerous for the helicopter to land on the snow, it's back to the drawing board. At the northern end of the Antarctic Peninsula lies Deception Island, our last stop before heading home. It's a 10,000-year-old flooded caldera, a protected bay once home to whaling stations, and still very much an active volcano. The last eruption happened in the winter of 1970, with no one there to see it. And that poses a unique challenge to the team's volcanologist, Erkan. With no eyewitnesses, scientists have to piece together what might have happened from clues in the landscape.
But we are on the crater wall, and we see an ice in the crater. It's very interesting. So why the glacier didn't melt during the eruption? We will see, and we will work on this, because if you formed this crater here and you have glacial inside, so it's very interesting to work on.
It's difficult to take samples at this time of year. Snowfall means many of Erkan's ideal spots for research are buried under the snow. But with the last notes being taken, it's time to head back to the boat. The final research has been logged and the trip is coming to an end. We're heading back on board for the last time. The helicopters will take us from the boat to an airstrip on King George Island, where a plane will fly us back to southern Chile. For expedition leader Burcu Özsoy, it's a chance to reflect on the last 5 weeks.
Well, this is the second expedition, and we completed the expedition very successfully. I know that we had a lot of different projects and different variety of projects, but we gained a lot of knowledge how to deal with the weather and changing conditions, precipitation, the sea condition or the wind. We tried to get the best out of it, making that we started with plan A but ended up with plan D, but tried still to do the science according to the weather conditions.
As we leave Antarctica, what I've come to really understand during my time here is that humans are the primary force behind the change we're seeing here. A century ago, the biggest threat to the wildlife here was hunting. Today, it's once again us, humans, and the pollutants we carelessly discard into the environment. And what happens here has a direct effect on the rest of the world we inhabit. Turkey is going to be playing a more active role in Antarctica and climate science. And if we want to preserve this continent like the Antarctic Treaty envisioned more than 60 years ago, it will also be up to the next generation to see it through.
Destination Punta Arenas. Flight time will be 2 hours approximately.